The price of freedom may be high, but it is never as costly as the loss of freedom.
Wow.
Ronald Reagan's words,
Yeah.
they really hit home, especially when we look at what's happening in Ukraine.
Right.
You know, our listeners wanted to understand the human cost of this conflict.
Of course.
And today we are diving deep into a piece
Okay.
titled The True Cost of Freedom, Supporting Ukraine's Struggle for Independence, Security, and Peace.
You know, it's interesting because this piece doesn't just talk about the buildings and the infrastructure destroyed.
Right.
It really dives into the families ripped apart, the millions grappling with emotional trauma.
Yeah.
It paints a really vivid picture of the invisible scars of war.
It makes you wonder what happens when the fighting stops.
Right.
Do those scars just disappear?
Not really.
Mm.
The research on this is extensive.
Yeah.
And sadly, the psychological wounds of war can linger for generations.
Wow.
I'm reminded of studies on the children of Holocaust survivors
Oh.
who experienced PTSD-like symptoms even though they never lived through the war themselves.
Oh, wow.
It really underscores the ripple effect of conflict.
That's a powerful point.
Yeah.
So we're seeing this immense devastation, this profound human cost.
Yes.
But amidst all of that, the source highlights the incredible resilience of the Ukrainian people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain that?
Well, think about it. You have mothers learning first aid,
Right.
not knowing if they'll have to use it on their own children. You have fathers joining defense units, leaving their families behind to protect their homeland.
Oh.
And young people stepping up to volunteer, risking their lives to deliver aid.
But what drives that level of courage?
Yeah.
It seems almost superhuman.
It is remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Part of it comes down to this idea of collective identity.
Okay.
In times of crisis, people find strength in shared purpose,
Mm-hmm.
in feeling like they're part of something larger than themselves.
Right.
It's like the entire nation is united in this fight for survival.
Yeah.
And that shared identity fuels their resilience.
So this sense of belonging, this shared purpose, that's what empowers them to resist even under occupation.
Exactly. And the source doesn't sugarcoat the realities of life under occupation for many Ukrainians.
Right.
We're talking about human rights abuses, forced assimilation, a systematic attempt to erase their culture and identity.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
This grim reality makes the need for global support even more crucial.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, can we unpack what daily life looks like under these conditions?
Sure.
The source mentions stories of quiet defiance. But how does that even work under such oppression?
It's a complex situation. Imagine
Yeah.
living under constant surveillance
Right.
where expressing your Ukrainian identity could be dangerous.
Oh.
But even in that environment,
Yeah.
people find ways to resist. They might wear a small blue and yellow ribbon, whisper forbidden songs,
Right.
or share underground news sources.
Yeah.
These acts of defiance might seem small, but they're incredibly powerful.
Right.
They show that the occupiers haven't broken their spirit.
It's like those embers of hope refusing to be extinguished. It makes you realize the human spirit is a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. And this is where the global response becomes so crucial.
Okay.
The source mentions an outpouring of empathy, humanitarian aid, and political pressure on Russia, but it also raises the question, what's that? Is it enough? Are these efforts truly making a difference on the ground?
That's a tough one.
Hmm.
I mean, we see these heart-wrenching images on the news every day,
Right.
and it's natural to want to help.
Yeah.
But how do we know our individual actions are actually making a difference in a conflict of this scale?
It's easy to feel overwhelmed, like anything we do is just a drop in the ocean. But think back to those acts of quiet defiance we were talking about.
Yeah.
Each one of those acts contributes to a larger movement of resistance.
Mhm.
The same principle applies to global support. Every
Yeah.
donation, every voice raised in protest, every conversation about the situation in Ukraine adds to the pressure for change.
So you're saying that even though we might feel insignificant as individuals, our collective action can create a ripple effect.
Precisely. And this brings us to the Ukraine Boost initiative mentioned in the source. This is a perfect example of how individuals can directly support Ukrainians in a tangible way.
Okay, so tell me more about this Ukraine Boost thing. How does it actually work? I'm picturing people buying Ukrainian flags or something, but I'm guessing it's a bit more nuanced than that.
It is. It's essentially a platform that connects consumers with Ukrainian businesses.
Okay.
So let's say you need a new coffee mug.
Okay.
Instead of going to your usual online retailer, you can browse Ukraine Boost and find a beautiful handmade mug crafted by a Ukrainian artisan.
Wow.
By making that purchase, you're not only getting a unique product, but you're also directly supporting a Ukrainian business and contributing to their economy.
So it's like a win-win. You get a cool product, and you're helping Ukrainians rebuild their lives at the same time.
Right.
But I'm curious, what kind of impact can this kind of individual action really have on a macro level? Is it really enough to move the needle in a conflict of this magnitude?
It is, but, let's go back to that Reagan quote we started with.
Okay.
The price of freedom is high.
Right.
That price isn't just paid on the battlefield.
Yeah.
It's paid by every individual who chooses to stand up for what they believe in, even in seemingly small ways. And when you multiply those individual actions by millions of people around the world, you start to see a real impact.
So you're saying that even though we might not single-handedly end the war, our actions can still contribute to a shift in the balance.
Exactly. Think about it in terms of morale.
Okay.
Imagine you're a Ukrainian soldier on the front lines,
Right.
exhausted and demoralized. Then you receive a care package filled with essential supplies purchased through Ukraine Boost.
Oh, wow.
Or you see a news report about people on the other side of the world protesting in support of your country.
Right.
Those things might not change the course of the war overnight,
Yeah,
but they can provide a much-needed boost of hope and encouragement.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's about showing solidarity, about letting them know they're not alone in this fight. And maybe, just maybe, that collective support can help tip the scales in favor of peace.
It's not just about the material support either.
Right.
It's about sending a message to the aggressors that the world is watching, that their actions have consequences. That kind of pressure, combined with continued aid and support for Ukraine, can create a powerful force for change.
So circling back to what you said earlier about the multifaceted nature of the cost of freedom, it seems like that cost extends beyond Ukraine itself.
Absolutely. This conflict has global implications. It's a reminder that the fight for freedom and democracy is an ongoing one, and it requires constant vigilance and effort from all of us.
And that effort can take many forms, from supporting initiatives like Ukraine Boost, to staying informed about the situation, to engaging in thoughtful conversations about these complex issues.
Exactly. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness and understanding that when freedom is threatened anywhere, it affects us all.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly insightful, albeit sobering. What's the one message you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
I hope they come away with a deeper understanding of the human cost of this conflict and a renewed appreciation for the value of freedom. But more importantly, I hope they feel empowered to act. Whether it's through supporting Ukraine Boost, staying informed, or simply engaging in dialogue, every action, no matter how small, can contribute to a more peaceful and just world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And for our listener, we encourage you to continue exploring this topic, to seek out diverse perspectives, and to find your own way to make a difference. Because as we've learned today, the fight for freedom is a collective one, and it requires all of us to do our part. And that wraps up our deep dive for today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.